Hello Warlords and Generals, welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be covering the Beastclaw Raider units where we left off with covering the Warglut units. And on this note, we are going to begin with the Mournfang packs. These hardy and belligerent creatures are favored mounts amongst the Beastclaw Raiders. The tons of ogre meat combined with the rampaging beasts makes for a devastating charge. To obtain such beasts to ride, a Mawtribe sends a Icebrow Hunter out to obtain some pups to raise. The ogres will do this by digging a pit, placing stakes around it, and leaving the pups in there, throwing captives, scraps of meat, and the occasional screaming Nobblar into the pit for them to feed on. When the pups reach a certain age, the Mawtribe will continue on their migratory path, leaving the pups to fend for themselves, often placing bets on which ones will survive. When the ogres return, they will be much bigger and fewer in numbers, as the survivors have devoured their rivals. The Mournfang will remember the ogres, making them a little more trustworthy to become riders. Sometimes, however, they will remember the ones who put them in the pit and tormented them and impale the ogres. This is fair to the ogres, however, for they weren't worthy to become riders to begin with in their eyes. Those that do become riders have a chip on their shoulders, seeing themselves as elite amongst ogre kinds, mostly for the fact that these riders ride alongside Stonehorns and Thundertusks, keeping pace with them, leaving all their on-foot Warglut allies in the dust. The Mournfangs themselves are belligerent and savage creatures, whether as mounts for the mounts or roaming the wastes of the realms. Part of this is due to the fact that they have poor eyesight, and as they grow, their tusks grow as well, obscuring their eyesight even more. This near blindness makes them even more furious, making them the perfect battering rams. The Mournfangs can go weeks without food, and it takes a mortal wound to truly kill one and take it down. And the respect the ogres have for these creatures is so great that, as far as to my knowledge, they are the only thing an ogre will even have the tinge of guilt for eating. That covers the Mournfang. Next we will be covering the Stonehorn. These creatures, there are a few creatures the ogres won't hunt and eat. Their appetite is just that voracious. However, they pause when they encounter a wild Stonehorn, even though eating one would prove an interesting challenge as they are basically a living mountain of granite. However, most ogres end up as a red paste if they ever try to hunt and eat one. So they instead tame and use them as war mounts and beasts of burden. This may seem a bad choice, but Stonehorns and ogres share a kinship, for they are both cursed with hunger. Stonehorns are creatures of living stone. Their bones, fur, and organs, and even have to eat rocks, stones, and gems to sustain, also taking on the aspects of said rocks, stones, or gems they eat. So if Mournfang eats some rubies, you'll actually end up seeing rubies in their bones and their tusks. However, this causes a sedimentary mineral buildup in their joints so much that, like the ogres, they cannot stop for too long. They will die. Unlike ogres, however, Stonehorns will turn into statues, completely turning to stone and never moving again. This shared hunger-related curse makes for a devastating partnership between the ogres and the Stonehorns. They help carry armor and provisions, as well as act as wonderful battering ram war mounts, as they are almost invulnerable to average weapons. They can even carry 2 ogre beast riders into battle. These ogres are called Fangs. Sole job is to direct the Stonehorn into battle, often carrying chain trap or trained blood vultures to pick off and harass enemies from afar. Most Fangs are happy simply mounting a Stonehorn and crashing enemies as they charge forward. As they break down fort walls and doorways, here the ogres will feast on defenders inside said forts as the Stonehorn eats the stonework of the fort, bringing to light the equal trade partnership of this symbiotic relation. And this covers the Stonehorn. We're going to move on to the next big beast of the Beastclaw Raiders, the Thundertusks. These massive creatures are fury of the Everwinter given massive form. Magical in nature, they are the focal point of unnaturally cold abilities, sending out waves of frost and ice. Their breath is a freezing gale onto their enemies. When they get into combat, they use this breath to freeze their enemies and turn them brittle. The ogres that tame these mighty beasts have a difficult task ahead of them. First, they must journey to where they live, at the very edge of the Everwinter's grasp. They must then bond with the mysterious creature after making such a dangerous journey. The beast riders that do succeed become the greatest asset to the Huskar tours of the Beastclaw Raiders, for all the Thundertusks share a strange ability. When more Thundertusks gather together, the more powerful their powers and their aura will increase exponentially in power and intensity. Even alone, a Thundertusk's breath is cold enough to freeze castle gates, turning them brittle and as much easier to break and shatter. The beast riders of these beasts tend to use harpoon launchers and chain traps, as the Thundertusks wreak havoc and carnage with its strength and its cold magics. These ogres will shatter those frozen by the breath or to impale if they are unfrozen enemies and or fleeing. Either way, the prey is saved for later, whether it is freshly caught or frozen chunks. Not a lot to go on with the Thundertusks, but that does cover them. And now we are going to move on to the Yetis. From the freezing howl of the Everwinter's storms come the ape-like icefall Yetis. These strange inhabitants of the Everwinter have their own origin shrouded in mystery. Azerian scholars claim that they are born of winter gales, ones that reach the edge of realms, where primordial energies emerge, combine with the ice to form them. Weird knobs of the Ice Kraka's war clan are stubborn in their belief that they are the offspring of Gorka Morka. The truth may never be known, however, for the Yetis themselves speak in a strange and eldritch language, one that only Huskar Tours can truly understand and speak. Thus, they are the only ones that can actually communicate with them. They do not speak often, in any regard, for they are silent beasts of the Everwinter. They follow in the wake of the Thundertusk's cold aura, lopping, jumping, and making bounding leaps towards their prey. When they strike, it is only comparable to an avalanche, often moving at fast enough to cause snow-shaded mirages. The crude clubs they wield are covered in a permanent and magical hoarfrost. One strike from this freezing weapon will cause blood of the victim to be frozen within the veins themselves. Even in Akshi, the realm of fire, do warriors find their breath steaming in the presence of these strange and savage entities. These freezing of the blood is useful, as it makes their prey sluggish, giving the Yetis the opening they need. Though ogres tend to hate their habit of deep freezing the meat, their usefulness as shock and terror troops is irreplaceable, and that is why the ogres keep them around. And with the strange yet very powerful and potent Yetis out of the way, we will go on to the Frost Sabers, the companions of Icebrow Hunters. The hefty feline-like creatures known as Frost Sabers are dangerous pack-minded predators. Very deadly, they get their name from the sword-sized fangs that jut out from their lower jaws. Another factor that makes them deadly is the lack of body heat. Even in the coldest conditions, they will not produce any steam on their breath, making them invisible in blizzard or colder conditions. This lack of heat is due to the freezing blood is responsible for the lack of body heat within their body, which is invaluable to the hunters as they will carefully bleed their companions for freezing breath potions. On top of the fact that they can run down and pounce on the fastest of mounts, even those of the elves, without slowing down or running out of breath easily. Unlike most war beasts and mounts of the Beastclaw Raiders, these beasts are not broken or captured like others. Instead, the hunter will raise them from cubs, making a deep companionship and connection, making the sabers incredibly loyal to the Icebrow Hunter. How the hunter gains cubs is random. He may come across a den of them, abandoned or the mother died, and not be able to feed them herself. Or even adopting sabers that attempt to and fail to ambush a hunter, turning the predator into a partner. Together, they stalk the land and help find new hunting grounds, these beasts usually being the only companion of the Icebrow Hunters themselves. And with the Frost Sabers covered, we end all the basic units and beasts and mounts of the Beastclaw Raiders, and now we are going to dive into the leaders, starting with the leaders of the Skull, the Icebrow Hunter. The eyes and ears of the Mawtribes, Icebrow Hunter are the solitary forerunners of any Mawtribe's Maw path. Master trackers and stalkers, to them falls one of the most important tasks, finding new lands for the Ogre brethren to get more food and loot from. Loners by nature, they find more comfort and at home in the solitary wilds than surrounded by their own kind. These master hunters only answer to the Frost Lord. Outside of this, the hunter has little to no interaction with other ogres. What even is more impressive is the Frost Lord gives the Icebrow Hunter complete freedom and autonomy. For the task a hunter must accomplish, they must complete freedom and to do so, and their talents have bought them the right to. The skill of these trackers is so refined that other races have hired them more often than not. They will find near extinct beasts or once lost for Aeon ruins. An Icebrow Hunter can find just about anything hidden or thought once lost, even rumored to have found lost paths between the realms. Another odd behavior of these hunters is they have a preference for ranged combat over melee. Using throwing spears or a heavy crossbow to use as opposed to getting into the thick of it. This is for practical reasons, as the hunter is usually killing maw crushers and raging stonehorns, though they do carry clubs just in case. The last odd capability of these hunters is the ability to create a freezing breath made from a concoction using their frost saber companion's blood. This breath can often turn anything in front of them into a frozen block, turning the poor victim brittle and shattering them with ease from either the hunter's club or spears or their frost saber companions. Next we will be discussing the Huskards, which there are two varieties, ones that lead the Ural and Yorlbad, and ones that lead the Torbad. And first we will be discussing the ones that lead the Ural and Earlbad, since they ride Stonehorns specifically and act more as captains and not shamans. Being just below the Frost Lord in the brutal hierarchy of the Beastclaw Raiders, Huskards are powerful warriors and hunters. The ones that ride Stonehorns, they have often to be imposing will upon the ogres of the Mawtribes. They serve as experienced advisors to the Frost Lord and tyrants alike, as well as strong fighters in battle. Command of the mounted raiding parties is split between two roles. The Yorlbad, or fighting hand, are the first into the fray, as they have to get the first pick of meat and loot. Yorls often contain the greatest of the Mawtribe's warriors. The other is the Earlbad, or eating hand, or is only slightly less of rank compared to the Yorl. The Earlbad's job is to come after the vanguard and stomp out any resistance that is left behind. The Huskards compete constantly for command of the Earlbad, and their leader encourages this rivalry. Since ogres disdain concepts like assassinations, they will often challenge each other to weed out the weak or trample their foes underfoot. These Huskers ride upon Stonehorns, as they fit the single-minded temperament complements the Huskards' role perfectly, charging right into the enemies as line breakers. Picking from the eldest and sturdy amongst the Stonehorns to ride into battle, these Huskards will often plow through heavy armor, allowing for Mournfang packs and slavering frost sabers to follow up and start devouring enemies behind the heavy armor. Many Huskards will attach metal platings to their Stonehorns' hides, horns, and fangs. This is more as a trophy showing, for it adds little resilience to the beast. Even though this is technically a second classification, the third Huskard is a Huskard Tor, rides upon a Thunder Tusk, and are different from the Yorl and Earlbad fellows, as they are shamans with deep connection to the Everwinter. Even Frost Lords are careful when addressing these Huskards. With a whim, they can summon blizzards and sub-zero winds to wield against their enemies. These Huskards lead the Torbad, the members who ride Thunder Tusks into battle. Enigmatic, these shamans can read the winds and see the will of Gorka Morka. To other ogres, they are not entirely creatures of this world, their soul frozen solid by the Everwinter's power. They hold numerous titles, such as Voice of Thunder, Frostborn, and Blizzard Speaker. Rarely do they speak. When they do, it is with Winter's Gale, speaking undeniable truths that cut like frozen winds. A Huskard Tor is chosen by the Everwinter, the Frost Lord officially naming them. This position is held for life, and once a Tor dies, the Everwinter picks a new one. They will inherit the power of the Storm and their predecessor's Thundertusk. In rare instances do the Shamans take command of an Alfrostan. When this occurs, the clan becomes known as a Svarthen, or Icewind. Regardless of a Huskard or a Tor, these ogres are powerful fighters and should not be underestimated, even if they aren't the leaders of the Mawtribe. Now, with the second in command of the Alfrostan and Beastclaw Raiders covered, we're going to cover the final bit of lore for the leaders, and that is the top of the food chain, the Frostlord. Riding on top of mighty Thundertusks or Stonehorns, the top of the food chain with the Beastclaw Raider, the Frostlords are the mighty lords of the Wild Steeps. Ancient and powerful, some even claim to have been marched to war alongside Sigmar's armies a time before the coming of Chaos. Though they may still fight as allies to the older armies, the legions of death and chaos alike just likely to be their enemies as well. Much like a tyrant, a Frostlord's job is to constantly provide food for the Mawtribe that they lead. Those that challenge this position meet swift and brutal ends. No such thing as mercy or pity in a Frostlord's heart. Only this deeply touched by the Everwinter's chill can have a hope of becoming one themselves. These mighty chieftains wield frost spears into battle as a sign of their position and power. Cooled with the blood of a Thundertusk and blessed with the freezing breath of Gorkamorka, they are levels of potency greater in power than the standard club or cleaver a typical ogre may use. When a new ogre claims leadership of an Alfrostan, they will either forge a new one or take the previous leader's frost spear. Regardless, these weapons can pierce most hides and armor, the serrated blade never dulling and constantly pulsating with power of the Everwinter. Contests for leadership tend to take place upon mighty Stonehorns and Thundertusks, the loser being trampled and feasted upon by the winner's mount. The loser's mount is slain and feasted upon for the rest of the tribe. These differ from the Wargluts, tyrants who hold no interest in the title of Frostlord, and vice versa, neither quite understanding the other's way of war and struggle with their cultures as well. If a Frostlord falls in battle, those who would replace him gather and commence the Rite of Hrothgar. These aspirants head out alone on a hunt, then bring back the largest beast they can find back as a meal. This meat will be offered up to the rest of the tribe. The contender with the most ogres wanting to eat their kill is the winner and the new Frostlord. It's common for ogres to bring back Sigors or even Gargants for this competition. The greatest asset of the Frostlords is its booming voice of command, being powerful enough to even make the beasts of the Alfrostan to redouble their efforts at its command. The more ancient Frostlords have been rumored to have been heard across continents, attracting even more ogres to his destructive rampage in search of more food on his Mawtribe's Maw path. And that is it for the Beastclaw Raiders unit lore. If you liked this video, please leave a like and leave a comment on if you wish to leave any criticism about my lore coverage or my videos. If you'd like to see more content from me, please leave a subscribe, and if I have a Discord and a Patreon if you wish to support me. I hope you enjoyed the video, and have a wonderful day, and happy wargaming!